Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Great to see so many of you here today, and welcome to Develop Brighton 2024. I hope the next 3 days are going to be fun-filled and all informative at the same time. So you haven't really come here to listen to me, so I'm going to hand over to your host for the opening keynote, Neil Long. Over to you, Neil.
Hello. Are our mics working? They are. So good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brighton. It's kind of raining, kind of not. We've had a lot of coffee in the speakers room beforehand, so this is going to be a good time. I'm Neil Long. I'm the editor of MobileGamer.biz. It's a mobile games industry website which I set up 2.5 years ago. I am a former editor of MCV, official Nintendo magazine, Edge Online, and I was at Apple for a long time as App Store editor. But more importantly, I have with me Kristian Segerstrale. I got that right. Mobile games industry legend. He's very humble, so he won't like me saying that. But if I could just rattle through some of his career highlights. Co-founder of Macrospace, better known today as Glue Mobile, which was one of the first mobile game companies to IPO. This is the days before iPhone as well. So in the days of terrible joysticks on Nokias. He later co-founded casual social game company Playfish, which was acquired by EA in 2009. He also later co-founded Initial Capital, which was a lead investor in a company called Supercell. So that went quite well. Today he is a patron of games industry mental health charity Safe in Our World and CEO of Super Evil Megacorp, a cross-platform game developer whose origins are in mobile. Super Evil Megacorp's latest launch is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate, a game that first arrived on Apple Arcade and is now headed to Switch on July 17th. So before we get into the keynote and the discussion, let's take a look at the game. Roll trailer.
Leo? He's gone! Splinter's gone!
Father? Father! He's gone, guys. What do we do now?
We stop talking and start smashing, that's what.
All over again. Ninja. Practice makes perfect. Boss vibes in the house. I need to collect more data, whatever it takes. Nice.
Your family's doom is at hand. Your brothers, your pathetic fool of a father. We're gonna come get you, Sensei. Nothing's getting in our way.
All right. So before we get going, I just wanted to get a sense of who's in the room. Could you raise your hand if you're developing a game right now?
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
There's future for the UK gaming.
Okay. Good. We're not all doomed. Raise your hand if you're a publisher. Okay.
That trepidation there.
Yeah.
Oh shoot! I'm gonna get us.
Okay. We might not get with people. Investors, they might not want to raise their hands.
Oh come on, investors!
Come on.
There's one there.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's interesting. I guess let's address the elephant in the room. It's pretty well documented that it's kind of bleak out in the games industry right now. But as a sort of serial entrepreneur and investor, can you give us some hope and give us some? It's all on you, Kristian. Give us an idea of what you're excited about right now in the games business and where you see the biggest opportunities.
Sure. I mean, honestly, if you want to feel good about games, the best thing to do is to find somebody that works in movies or in music, almost any other kind of media, and ask them, how are you doing? Because frankly, in games, we're doing pretty amazing, really. I mean, and I know I'm sort of being a little bit flippant about it. This year is bad, right? I mean, we've had over 10,000 layoffs between the first half of the year. I think that's like more than all of last year put together, I think.
Yeah.
And you look at projects being canceled, you see studios being closed, you see like even some unfathomable sounding decisions being made by really big companies of closing award-winning studios and whatnot. So yeah, it doesn't look great when you look at it on a sort of just at face value. That said, though, if you do zoom out, like our industry in the last 10 years or so has more than doubled in size, right? What other industry can say that? And we're still at like somewhere around just north of 3 billion people playing games today and growing every year. If you look at Newzoo, any of these reports, you look at the kind of amount of players that are engaged in computer games around the world, it's just increasing all the time, right? More people have access to game playing devices. Just as an industry, our industry fundamentals are there for growth over the next 10 years. So why, so if you look at this year in context of post-pandemic, I guess macro, if you like, with high inflation, high interest rates, even if inflation is coming down, interest rates are kind of staying up. So you're not seeing that much investment as a result. And frankly, a lot of studios and companies being a little bit out of position, perhaps thinking that the pandemic was going to last a little bit longer than it did, and that people were always going to spend all of their time playing games at the time. So you did see a growth bump that perhaps came down. But I do think that we as an industry tend to overreact. We overreact to short-term trends and we underreact to long-term secular evolution in the industry. And I think as an entrepreneur, like, I mean, when I started my first mobile gaming company in 2001, the very first phones that were supposed to be able to download games were about to be launched. So the market size was 0. And we were hoping perhaps this will be $1 billion industry one day, maybe. And it was really unclear because, you know what, when you take a feature phone with a digital keys, if you like, where you can only go left, right, up, or down, right? With a black and white screen and 65 pixels wide, or I think, yeah, 65 by, or 96 by 65, I think the first ones were. You could totally, in a really reasonable way, say that this will never take off or it will be super niche at all times. And where now mobile gaming is what, 90 billion or so today, and it's kind of just grown from strength to strength in different ways. Again, none of that is to understate how challenging the industry is for many developers today. And I kind of, we see that. I know a lot of people see that. But I do think that the best companies in the long term are punched in the face a few times during their journey. It happened to Supercell earlier on. It's happened to pretty much all of the companies I've been involved in one way or the other. And when the industry punches you in the face, the best thing you can do is learn from it and try to look at how do we use this, if you like, this having to like realize that, oh no, not everything is the way that we want it to be. How do we use that situation to become a better company, a more resilient company, and ultimately to make better games? Because that's what the industry is about. So not sure if that's hope, but it's certainly, like, the way I see it, it's
I'll take it.
It's fine. Yeah, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, I think what you say about early days of mobile there is super interesting. It was effectively a new platform, a whole new ecosystem that came along. The stage we're at right now is where, console, PC, mobile, all sort of pretty well established, and it doesn't feel like there's anything big or new on the horizon. People have tried to make that happen with Web3, metaverse kind of stuff, but your company in particular started out in mobile and is now sort of, you would describe yourselves as a cross-platform specific company. Do you think that is the way PC, console, mobile is headed, that the sort of barriers between those categories of games are kind of falling down?
Yeah, no, I would say that. I think in general, I guess I love games. I grew up playing games. I love making games. But even more than that, I love trying to think through what are some of the long range evolutions in the industry, and how does one start projects today that might sort of come to fruition 3, 5, 7 years from now in terms of how people will ultimately play games. And that's been kind of my obsession really from the start, that and figuring out how to build well-functioning game teams. It's true, there is no single new platform right now that is sort of driving growth. But that said, there's an awful lot of opportunity to make the most out of the platforms that we have. And I do think that it's almost physics at this moment in time. There's such gravitational pull around cross-platform for any core or mid-core gaming IP for like maybe 3 or even perhaps 4 reasons, right? Mm. One is, as we all know, making games is really hard, right? I mean, it's a minor miracle to ship anything. It's a miracle to ship a good game, a game that genuinely is kind of players play and go, holy moly, this is amazing. Once you've made a really good game, it is so much more effective. You can reach more players by being on more platforms. It's sort of obvious, but we don't always think of it that way. So as a result, now that in particular mobiles are powerful enough that you have to think about the input mechanisms, you have to think about the business models, and there's lots of things you have to think about to make a cross-platform game. But even then, all else equal, if you can choose to, if that minor miracle happens where you make an amazing game and it's only available on one platform, it's just not as effective, if you like, for you as a developer. Secondly, there's the marketing spend leverage. I mean, and it is sort of a boring word, but it's incredibly important. If you spend $1 million in marketing, you really hope that that's going to have some impact, right? And if you can only reach players of a specific platform that consider mobile their primary platform, that is not nearly as effective as if you can say, hey, you can play this on any platform that you happen to be on. So those are probably two of the more important things. I would also say that the most impactful games out in the market tend to be games that people play together, that are experiences that aren't just a single player long journey like this, but rather something that becomes not just about what's happening in the game, but what's happening between the people who play. And if you are on all platforms, building things where people can play together is kind of more natural, right? Because you can play on whatever device you happen to enjoy playing on.
Yeah.
So all of these things are things that make cross-platform a pretty exciting opportunity. It is difficult and it's interesting. We actually, my colleague Tom Westall is actually giving a talk at 12 o'clock today on the mobile track about how we thought about this for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and kind of all of this, lots of lessons and learnings. I watched the video of the talk yesterday. It's really good. I learned a lot, so I recommend it. But there's a lot of nuance to how you do it. But I do think that it's sort of a secular trend, if you like. Perhaps not for the most casual of games, because they might be a more mobile focused that way. But for anything that is mid-core or core,
yeah,
I would think that 5 or 10 years from now, it'll be the exception will be the game that is platform exclusive or in some other way not playable on everything.
Yeah. Would that be your sort of advice to those in the room seeking funding right now, to think kind of beyond platforms and kind of more socially?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. What I wouldn't do is to try to pitch for $100 million, $200 million AAA, single player only adventure game. Like those will exist, but that's maybe not the best thing to pitch for as a smaller studio. I think in general, things which are social rely less on production values. Like I play Lethal Company with my kids a ton at the moment. It is super fun, and boy, does it not have production value, but it is still incredibly fun, right? And it's beautiful because that's what games should be. And I think as independent and smaller developers in particular, I would look at what can you build that can be built with the tools available relatively cheaply, where the focus is how players play together, and where if it works, and again, shipping a game is a minor miracle. Shipping a game that actually works is like a major miracle. If it does work, then you are much more likely to be able to distribute it more virally, more friends to friends, that in ways that neither costs too much to develop or too much to market. So the more that you can play to your own strengths, the more that you can play to not trend chase of making yet another Lethal Company or making yet another Pal World, but rather go and make something original and different, but crucially relatively low budget and something that really pops socially would be things that I would look at.
And can you give us an idea of maybe what not to do when you're seeking funding? Do you think there are certain categories of games or platforms that are sort of oversubscribed or flooded with games that don't really need any more?
Yeah, there's a lot of things not to do. So I don't know. It's a big list. But I think the most important thing is ultimately to know your audience and to know who you're pitching to, and to not pitch something different than what they are looking for. Like, for example, if you are pitching to a publisher, understand what their budget range is. Like, what do they actually back? And another thing is to pitch the thing that you are good at, and you have evidence that you are good at the thing. And pitch a thing that you have a likelihood of, even if things go wrong during that project, because things always go wrong in games. They go wrong within a game project, they can go wrong between games, that you have a really credible path to fixing it. So you're not just pitching a game idea, but you're also pitching the team, and you're making sure that you understand that you're sort of getting into this venture together with a publisher or with a financier of some other kind. And everybody knows who's been in the industry for a while that you will hit bumps together, and so you need to kind of pitch your ability to fix it as well as just make a great game. So things not to do is not to turn up at these meetings unprepared. They are, in particular now in this industry, there's probably more games seeking funding today than there's ever been, both because there are more studios in trouble, there are more games that have run over budget, and there's less willing financiers out there today than there's ever been, as far as I can remember. That doesn't mean your game can't get funded, but it just means it puts a lot more pressure on your professionalism, your preparedness, and your willingness to go the extra mile when it comes to prep and putting yourself out there.
Cool, thank you. I think there's been a few references to getting punched in the face and what not to do, and you have a little sort of background there in terms of what happened with Super Evil Megacorp a few years ago. So for those unfamiliar, the big sort of debut flagship game was a game called Vainglory, which got a huge amount of support from platforms and the industry, turned into a big sort of mobile esport. And then it kind of went a little bit wrong. So maybe talk us through what happened with the game, what happened with the company, and what happened throughout the process where you kind of rebooted and reset the company.
Sure, and it still causes me physical pain to think about some of this stuff. So,
we'll get through.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's support in the room. This is what the industry is about. Well, to give you a little bit of background, my two first companies between what became Glue Mobile and Playfish, they were really just up and to the right. We started, yes, it was challenging at the start, but like every game, maybe we made a mistake or two here or there, but ultimately the company grew, and on average, things just kind of went up and to the right. So by the time that I joined Super Evil Megacorp, and I joined it as a COO originally, an executive director, because my wife had banned me from starting another game company. It's completely unreasonable. We had 2 young children at home. I'd been doing it for like 10 years at that point in time plus, and she felt that it was probably good for me to sleep at night, at times anyway. So I joined thinking that, hey, I can be like a player coach. I can join, I can help build a company, contribute what I know to building a company, fundraising, building publishing teams and whatnot, and at the same time not get up at 2 a.m. at night and to think that everything's going to shit, which is basically what game development is a lot of the time. And every other night, you get up at 2 a.m. and you go in front of the mirror and go, who the man, this is going to be the most amazing thing, right? So somehow my wife thought that this is not the healthiest of behaviors always. So anyway, but we launched, I absolutely fell in love with Super Evil Megacorp's vision then of bringing core gaming to mobile. And our first product, Vainglory, which is a mobile, launched in a big way and through like an Apple keynote, which is nearly 2-minute section that we had at the iPhone 6 launch, I want to say. And yeah, I mean, it was just a very hot game at the time. We got tons and tons of players, millions and millions of people playing. The business took off again, up and to the right. Everything is great for a couple of years. And at that point in time, we just kind of doubled down on that growth trajectory, thinking we walk on water. There's going to be the next League of Legends, and we can just keep investing into all of the things, expanding the company, doing all the things to chase this particular success, because that's what one should be doing. Until it dawned on us collectively sometime in 2016, 2017, that sort of time frame, that after a couple of years of growth, this game is no longer growing. We tried everything. We literally tried everything. We tried to add game modes, add different business models, try different things, like everything we possibly could. And we had lots of players. We just couldn't get players to, frankly,
so it was monetization. It's
fundamentally a cosmetics-based economy. It's a very challenging economy to run in a skill-based game, cosmetics economy. You need lots and lots and lots of players.
Fortnite numbers.
Yeah, you need massive numbers for it to work. And we had large numbers. We had millions of players, but not quite enough to sustain the kind of cost base that we had racked up at that point in time. We had a big esports scene. We had hundreds of thousands of people watching simultaneously our world championships and whatever, and all that stuff kind of cost money. And we had also expanded our headquarters in California. We were lots of people. We were all of those things. And then, the numbers of the game kind of start sliding down, and it's a horrible thing to watch. You try everything and you just cannot, turn this game around, and the community is screaming at you. Like, still to this day, I cannot tweet anything without getting at least a handful of "bring Vainglory back." Where's Vainglory? Why are you working on this new game? Why can't you bring Vainglory back?
I had it too when I interviewed you about a year ago. I still get tweets about Vainglory, the game.
It's your fault. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, But I mean, we had a wonderful community, all of those things, and it was so painful to kind of for that game to start declining. And you know, for us, frankly we just didn't want to face that. We wanted to just try to fix it. You know, you get into this tunnel vision a lot of the time as a developer. You just go, I can fix this, right? And we didn't have a plan B. So we didn't have another title in development. We didn't have like another thing that we were doing. So until it was the issue sort of was forced on us sometime in, I want to say 2017. I also we basically need to think about, hey, what are we going to do? And at that point in time,
what would you have done differently back? So, you know, the sun's shining, Vainglory's doing great. Would you go back and start like plan B, start another project? Like,
yeah, I think
to balance out.
I think there are two big lessons from it. I think for me, and I think for every lesson there's an exception. So just because these are lessons for us doesn't mean they're correct for every game. But I think that we probably should have understood earlier that with the 3v3 MOBA that we launched that had an amazing following and a growing community, that it was fundamentally a game for a relatively small amount of, well, I mean, still in the millions, but it's not a game that will reach hundreds of millions of players, certainly not in the West. And ultimately, as a Western developer, it's very hard to do this well in China. And we perhaps should have just said, look, this game was an amazing first game for us. Let's make sure that we now can run it profitably and sustainably moving forward. So optimizing everything from our tool chains to our how we host to how we manage it, in such a way that it would have been like a slow burning, growing, profitable business. Back then, just profitability was kind of unfashionable. Today, profitability is very fashionable. So, but back then it was kind of out of fashion. But that would be one of the things I would have done. And secondly, I do think that it's really important for every game entrepreneur in the room to understand that you're fundamentally building a game company, not just a game. So thinking about the fact that games trajectories do vary. Sometimes you can get a game that just grows and grows, and most of the time games grow and then they come down at some point in time. And being ready for that day when they come down in whatever way makes sense for you and your company is important. And building genre expertise, building ways of reusing tech in such a way that you can have a second game and a third game in development would have been things that we should have looked into way earlier. And I mean, as it happens, you know, when I took on for my sins, ultimately took on the CEO job in, I think it was late 2017 or so, that was basically what we had to do. We had to reset the company to a very small, come back from north of 100 people to something like in the mid 20s, super painful. Don't do it if you can avoid it, but if you have to do it. And then we basically reset our strategy entirely to be basically a game company that starts a new game every 1 or 2 years. The focus is entirely on the genre expertise of co-op action games that are cross-platform.
Yeah. So did you feel like it was too early to take Vainglory cross-platform?
We actually did launch Vainglory on PC, but we launched it in a way that
But there's a ton of competition.
There's a ton of competition on PC, and it should have been. It was a thing where we used it to also expand our R&D, like to learn to launch on PC. But at the end of the day, PC, there are many, in case you didn't know, many very successful PC MOBAs out there. So that wasn't
console wasn't
big.
Part of the thinking. It was just too early for MOBAs on console.
At that time, we didn't feel that it was the biggest of opportunities. Frankly, we also felt that, hey, we are on mobile. We should be able to figure out mobile first. And if our player base isn't growing on mobile, the idea that we can just kind of magically solve this by putting a lot of extra work on our end to make it on console didn't feel like necessarily the right thing. The one thing I will say though about that particular kind of crisis that we had as a company at the time was that one of the things that we did do well was that when we did make the change, we made big changes, right? It wasn't like a small tweak of, hey, let's kind of half-heartedly try something else. We said, okay, Vainglory did not work out. We will leave it up as a community edition. Anyone can play. You can still play it today. But we are going to not just focus on making multiple games. We're going to make games in such a way that we can sustain a mishap. We can sustain a game not working out by working with publishers on some games, self-publishing some other games on some platforms, sort of taking orthogonal risk, if you like. We also then decided in 2017 to go fully remote. So we said, hey, we're going to be a remote game company because we cannot find the talent at we can't get to the cost level that we need to be at as a company. And we really want to find the best talent in the world. And we thought we called it remote first back then. And it was really scary because there weren't very many game companies who could make games remotely. And we thought, maybe is this even possible? But we thought that, we've tried it the other way and we cannot build a cost-effective game company out of California. So, hey, let's try and build it fully remote. And we were obviously very, very fortunate that we foresaw the pandemic. We knew that this was going to happen. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, you're ahead of the pandemic and you go fully remote. What do you get right and what do you get wrong at that point where no one's in the office anymore, everyone's at home?
Actually, initially some of us were in the office and many people were not in the office. And that was probably the first thing that we realized was just really difficult. I think making games all else equal, if everyone can be in the same room, is just a better, easier way to make games. So if you can do that, right? If you can't do that, then it is actually better for everyone to be, in my opinion, it's better for everyone to be fully remote than for some people to be in an office and some people not. Because I think games are the fundamental expression of collaboration between people. And if there are first-class citizens in that collaboration and second-class citizens in that collaboration, with some people being able to have those water cooler conversations and other people not, then you don't create like a balanced creative environment. So it is, of course, more challenging to be remote and be really great and creative and collaborative. But there are tools. I mean, we're all gamers, and tools like Discord are pretty good at this kind of thing. And these days, we get together physically a lot. We get teams together physically a lot. We get the whole company together physically. We do lots of things physically because it matters to be together physically. But that was one area. The other thing is that initially we thought that we needed like always on presence all the time. And we only kind of very gradually started letting go of that and really learning that actually just being really great with information hygiene, decision hygiene, being really great at empowering and trying to find ways of people having latent awareness of what's going on everywhere, but total clarity as to what they are working on and how they're working on things, so that they never get.
Did it slow you down? Did it slow down your development processes to begin with, or did that slow down? Kind of, was that front ended and now?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't think being remote ever really slows you down. In some ways, it deceptively speeds you up, but possibly in the wrong direction, right? So I think you're more likely to go really fast and then find yourself that, hold on a second, this thing that we were building isn't actually the thing that we needed to build. And I think in games in particular, it's such an iterative process that forcing playtests, forcing the iteration, and forcing real asking questions of, hey, are we still making the right thing, is something that has become, we've at least started to, we've acknowledged is a really important part. So it doesn't necessarily slow down the day-to-day development, but it does slow down sometimes having the insights and taking the important decisions to course correct when a game isn't going in the right direction.
Let me do the final painful question about the reboot, layoffs. So how do you feel like, what were those conversations when you knew you had to sort of right-size the company, as corporate people say, when you knew you had to cut staff, when you knew you had to sort of take, was it 100 down to 20?
Yeah, 20 something, yeah.
How did you approach those conversations with the people affected, and how did you communicate that to the sort of outside world?
It's horrible. Like, I cried. I mean, it's the most horrible thing when people entrust you with their journey, like their careers. They entrust that, you know what you're doing, so I'm going to take a job here as opposed to a job somewhere else, and then you actually realize that you can't. I guess from our point of view, what we did and tried to do at the time was to one, be like super transparent about where the company is at, just to say, look, here's where we're at, and here's kind of how much money we have left, and here's all the reasons as to why we have to do something, and then make sure that we took the decision as quickly as we possibly could, following on from having the various insights in such a way as to be able to pay generous severances, being able to do all of the things that just try to do right by talent as much as possible. Because the truth is, at least I've been doing this for a while, and companies and projects, they do come and go, but talent in this industry is forever. And the worst thing that you can do is betray trust to talent. Like, projects do not always work out. I don't have control. You don't have control. Like, we just don't have control. Projects do not always work out. But if in that process, our number one value as a company is integrity and citizenship in the industry. So making sure that if you've joined us on this journey to go and do something, and that journey goes wrong for whatever reason, the single most important thing to us is that we are doing the right thing in terms of both handling the overall situation, being good citizens in the industry, and also taking care of our talent as much as we possibly can. So doing everything from trying to help people find jobs, trying to personally recommend them, and in any other way help people find new homes has been something that's been important to us. It is super painful, though. Do we have to talk about this?
Yeah, we go. Sorry. I think you did a good job of answering that. So we'll move on.
Sorry, I will finish that on a positive note, though, is that when these things happen, and they do happen in the industry, it's a kind of thing. They do test who you are ultimately, both as individuals and as companies, and it is, I think, it's important, even, and I'm a patron of a mental health charity because I believe so much in this. The gaming industry is a really hard industry to be in. You feel your self-worth is being questioned all the time. Games get killed. Companies, for seemingly no reason, sometimes appear to be downsizing and whatnot. It's hard, right? But I think that so long as you stay true to, on the one hand, if you're in a leadership position, staying true to your talent, and also staying true to making sure that if you have to make changes, make bold changes, take a new direction. Don't just be reactive, be proactive as part of that situation. Decide, okay, this didn't work out. Instead of making a small course correction, go, now we have an opportunity to reset. Like, how do you make the most out of this crisis? So the remaining talent, you give them a real chance to do something good. So these things, they're horrible, but they do also teach you many things. And I think the important thing is to not let it get to you. And there are many, like Safe in Our World, just to plug them, have some amazing resources online. And there are folks to talk to and whatnot if you feel overwhelmed by the industry, because it does happen. Happened to me, has happened to other people. So, but it's, in some ways, the reason why the game industry is so dynamic and reinvents itself all the time is because of this flux, this talent that gets freed up that then ultimately gets to build something entirely new and different. So even though sometimes these changes are painful, they are ultimately, for the overall ecosystem, can be incredibly liberating and empowering to build some entirely new things. So how about that as a positive spin on?
Good. Yeah, I was going to move on, but you just keep going. That's fine.
I just didn't want to leave it on like a downer. That's all.
So I mean, okay, let's keep going. No, I'm joking. Let's talk about Apple Arcade and Netflix. So you reboot the company. You're down to 20. At the time, Apple Arcade comes along, which I know, which we mentioned before. Like, there's not been a huge amount of new ecosystems to take advantage of like there was in mobile 10, 15 years ago. But with Apple Arcade and Netflix, those are kind of those new subscription models, same with Game Pass. It is a different way of making games. So what did you have to think about having gone from free to play to a subscription first sort of almost retention-like model? What did you have to think about as a game maker when you approached making a game for Apple Arcade and Netflix?
Yeah, so I mean, part of it honestly was for us we decided as we rebooted the company that we're going to learn to crawl and then walk and then run. So, hey, let's make sure that we begin by working on multiple projects, out of which then one we chose to work on the TMNT IP and on Apple Arcade in order to be able to really focus and just prove to ourselves that, hey, we can make a great game. Let's make sure that we make a really great game and that we can focus initially on retention as our core metric. Like, can we make a game that people just want to play again and again and again and play with friends, and just make sure that we can really nail that part? And that's really what a subscription service is good for, in my mind. And also, it is helpful that both Apple Arcade and Netflix, they do ultimately finance games. So if you make a game that they somehow finance either partly or fully, or however that the deal might be, it ultimately enables you as a company to build up a team, build a competence, build R&D, build capability in an area. And for us, as sort of in our pursuit of genre mastering co-op cross-platform action, which is like what we make, that's what we want to be really uniquely great at. It's what we have an engine for. It's like what we're good at. That was a really good opportunity to take one stab at that, if you like, by focusing purely on retention, focusing on a single platform in Apple Arcade, and start there. Still, of course, with the mind, hey, we're going to build a cross-platform game from the start, and that's why we're now bringing it to Switch and then other platforms over time. But it was a really good starting point for that title for that reason. But making games is making games. It's not really that different where you're making it for. I just think that clarity of what does success on this platform look like, and how do you incorporate that into the core design of the game and the core creative conceit for the game, I think is pretty important.
So how does Splintered Fate come about exactly? Do you know the license holders? Are you a Ninja Turtles fanboy? Like, how do you go from Vainglory and Catalyst Black, which we haven't quite mentioned, but it was a similar kind of mobile MOBA, to a licensed roguelike co-op game?
Yeah, so we wanted to, again, co-op action is what we make, so we want to make another co-op action game. we wanted to try, like I talked about orthogonal risk earlier, we wanted to try something different with each of our projects so we learn something new. Of course, subscription is one sort of orthogonality, if that's a word. But then we also wanted to work with a licensed IP, and we were trying to look at what kind of an IP would fit with, on the one hand, an Apple Arcade offering, which is aimed at family, that would naturally lend itself to co-op gameplay, that would be sort of co-op action. And then there were a couple of different IPs that we ended up considering. We're actually collaborating fairly closely with Apple Arcade at the time, and they were super helpful in us thinking through this and what could work. And then we ultimately ended up chatting with Paramount, and we ended up really enjoying each other's visions of that and made TMNT.
Yeah, that is a big tip. Get cozy with the platforms, get cozy with Netflix. You're now working with Netflix on a Rebel Moon game.
That's right.
So you get to hang out with Zack Snyder, presumably, and
presumably
go to his mansion, hang out. So can you give us an update on that game and when that might be hitting Netflix?
We're very excited about where this game is at. It certainly stretches our muscles as a company. It's gameplay that evolves on what we are good at, but we haven't announced it yet, or we haven't shown anything about it yet, so I can't talk about it further today. But we're very excited about that collaboration, and I think one of the things that we are very, very curious about and interested in, and we are pursuing both through our TMNT project, but also through the Rebel Moon project, is this broader notion of transmedia and IP building. We think, just like as I was saying, it's sort of almost physics that core and mid-core games go cross-platform in the medium to long term. In a similar way, it feels like entertainment IP goes transmedia long term. And of course, we've had movie adaptations of games and game adaptations of movies for a very long time, and that stuff has happened ad nauseum so far. But I think what we haven't had is that notion of deliberately from the ground up building IP in a way where the interactive and linear releases of various kinds around that media form sort of a live ops tapestry, if you want to call it that, over time, in such a way as to be able to serve a fan base in different ways. Lots of companies have tried in different ways, and it's not like a new idea, but I think we have more and more movie talent working in games and more game talent working in movies, and I think we're starting to understand each other better in such a way that entertainment IP, I think, will be generated and created in a new way in the future. So both working with Paramount on TMNT and working with Netflix and Rebel Moon and the Stone Quarry team, Zack Snyder's team, on that IP is really there to help teach us and think about what does it mean to build entertainment IP in the long term between interactive and linear media. So that's that process, and our writing teams working together and working out how could we build bits of the universe which are on the one hand linked and on the other hand can live their own life in different ways outside of the core Rebel Moon content has been really interesting to us. And I think it's been both a great learning experience and something that we can't wait to show you guys over time.
And what do you think needs to happen for transmedia? The idea of it is great. We've had Last of Us, Fallout, all of that stuff sort of going from games to TV and vice versa. We've got a Borderlands movie coming, but there doesn't seem to be a sort of coordinated effort here where the movie hits the same time as the game. Is it timing where the reason that transmedia hasn't quite sort of clicked yet? Or do you feel like that's not actually relevant, that it's okay that the Fallout TV show comes out and people go back and play some old games?
Yeah, I mean, let me answer that in a different way. Who saw the recent Super Mario movie that came out, right? I saw it, many of us saw it. It's pretty good, right? Who saw the original, that Super Mario movie that came out 15 years ago, right? Even more people. Amazing. Who noticed a slight difference in quality slash being true to the brand? So I actually think, to your point, this thing of games and movies getting each other better has been happening, right? I mean, if you actually zoom out and you got data points over a longer time, right? It's been happening. Really high quality efforts recently. I think what hasn't been happening, which is what you're putting your finger on, is that even though there was a time when there was a bunch of movie games released that would come out day and date with a movie. It's actually mainly to as a marketing umbrella, I suppose. Yeah. I was even involved in some of those for my sins. What hasn't happened, I feel and what is happening now much more so, is that the big production houses and the big media companies are starting to think, how do we actually build a very long-range plan around an IP? And maybe Hasbro is probably one of the more advanced thinkers in this area right now, and executors with say, things like D&D in terms of looking at the sequence of movies and different content coming out. But I think that IP building over time is just going to be much more thoughtful about this. It's not about releasing things day and date. It's about gradually building out a universe with really great standalone linear media content, really great standalone interactive media content, but that gradually sheds light on a universe. And I think what we've seen, what's been interesting, I could talk about this forever, but like in case you can't tell, but what's been interesting is that if you've followed the linear media efforts around IP like Star Wars or the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's been sort of an effort like this. It's been very fashionable in linear media to try to like build out every possible corner of a universe, and just churn out tons and tons and tons of content. And there's probably been quite a lot of lessons in that, in terms of perhaps what is the optimal amount of content and so on for a universe for linear media. But what wasn't done, I don't think, nearly as well as part of those efforts has been to think about, okay, but what role does interactive media play here? Where should the big cross-platform, free-to-play game live in this universe, or what should be some other expressions in interactive media? I think these are hard problems, and anything that involves difficult problems over a long planning horizon, they're just difficult things. And I think we are learning as an industry, and we're certainly as a company, and personally, I'm really excited to be learning at the forefront of the industry in terms of where we are at, and hopefully helping the industry forward in those areas.
Yeah. I think for me, it'll be the point at which a Disney or another sort of big entertainment brand actually like hires someone who is a very experienced games person right at the top of the company, or near the top of the company at least. That's the point at which this sort of transmedia thing will actually happen, because there's still a divide. Like, games people maybe don't get movie and TV people, and vice versa.
There is a divide, but it is a smaller divide in that you do have people who grow. I mean, these days, whereas movies used to truly look down on games, in that like there was like the monetization arm of the IP or whatever it was, I do think that you have many more gamers growing up right now. I think everyone grows up a gamer, so as a result, even execs in movie studios tend to be gamers these days, or increasingly are gamers. So I think that helps, even if they are not game industry professionals. So I think like talent at every level understanding each other is just helpful, and I think there's a broader collective understanding that, hey, maybe we can help each other. And of course, movies having their own little existential crisis going on right now is also perhaps helpful in broadening views, and hey, what might we need to do as a collective entertainment industry to do a better job at serving our fan bases in the future.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think we have covered transmedia as buzzwords go. We're going to finish off with some buzzword bingo, and then some questions. So we've done transmedia. So give us your thoughts on AI, which is sure to be a buzzword used many, many times over this week.
Yeah, I think I think AI is pretty amazing, to be honest. I think AI has the potential to just be an incredible, over time, to augment the tools that we use in such a way that our artists, our storytellers, our technologists have the ability to bring their vision to life more conveniently and easier. It's like a bit like life before Photoshop versus life after Photoshop. If you have good tools to do the thing, bring your vision to life, I think that's great. I do think it's massively overhyped. I think this idea of it somehow completely massively changing everything overnight. It's a bit like I lived in the the early days of the mobile internet, and watching the WAP offerings.
Okay.
Do you remember the ad that goes
that term these days?
Yeah, it's true. But it's like, I remember that first ad on these black and white phones that came from, it was back when it was called BT Cellnet. It was called Surf the Net, surf the BT Cellnet. And then, you would press the button and it's like tick, 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 and you see a black and white some text. Like, so the point is, like, people very quickly jump to conclusions about what AI can and cannot do. And AI ultimately turns out, by definition, average stuff, because it's being trained by everything. So as a result, whatever it's going to turn out is average. Yeah. And we all know average games do not do very well, right? So but hopefully they can be tools that make our very best creators and make our creators able to bring their visions to life, that makes exceptional things, but faster and more conveniently, I think. So there's a promise there. And there's, of course, as a player, I'm excited about worlds that are more believable. I'm excited about characters that are more believable, more varied. Certainly, we all know how painful it is once you have a great game, core game, then building variation, the whole production hell that you go through for years to try to create variation and like interesting things. If we could just shorten that and like make it easier for us to do that, I mean, that'd be amazing. So I think it has a lot of potential. I think we will get there over time, but it's not a magic bullet for anything. And like those of us, sure, who've been around in games for a long time, new technologies always promise a lot of things, and then they take a long time to really get there.
Yeah, I think as someone covering that the sort of mobile games corner of AI, and sort of having to grind through some of the overhyped nonsense that you get sent as a journalist. It's when I've interviewed people about AI in game development, I have to keep asking over and over again, like, so what is it actually improved? Like, what tools are you actually using, and what is it actually improved? And I quite often get some quite vague answers. So I don't know, are you using any AI tools?
So here's a hot take. I think AI AI would make a better CEO than a game developer, to be honest, because there's been thousands of books written about how to be a good CEO. There's like cliche upon cliche about all of this stuff. You can ask a CEO, I have a town hall next week, what shall I talk about? And it'll literally give you a script that's to a town hall that you're sure you've heard it before, like someone give. So I actually think there are lots of little productivity hacks for AI. Like I use it a lot for like summarizing things, for trying to like, if you get lots of unstructured feedback from your community anywhere else, you can just ask, hey, what are the top 10 takeaways that you would have? Now, you have to be careful because it does hallucinate sometimes, but it's very good at summarizing things in general. And there are emerging tools that do help with certain things, right? Even in things like creating decks or those sorts of things. And you can certainly get like art that's just about your average, like that you use as clip art that was just as
like mood boards.
Mood boards, that sort of thing. Yeah,
that's the use I've seen thus far.
Yeah, no, it is true. And then there's all sorts of tools that claim to be able to do lots of things, which they will do. I mean, I'm sure that tooling around things like rigging and animation, all of those things will come along. The main thing just to take away with all of it is that it is average. Like you will get out average animation, average things. And it's like, who is here to make average, right? I mean, we're not here to make average. So why on earth settle for average as a result?
So can I ask the audience, can anyone put their hand up and give me a very precise example of how AI has made game development better in your current processes?
So we have a game that is deliberately designed around generative AI-powered NPCs. It's a genre we're calling first-person.
You're just about to get a microphone.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
So I work for Meaning Machine. We're producing a game called Dead Meat. It's the first-person talker, and it's something that wasn't possible before. Yeah. So behind the scenes, there's handwritten world lore, location lore, character lore, rich bios for the characters, and you sit there and in Dead Meat, you're interrogating a character who maybe, possibly, definitely has killed their husband, and you're trying to find out the details of that case. And that's something that wouldn't be possible if you were hard coding a dialogue tree or something like that.
Okay.
And we've had pretty good responses from people that have tried it. We're demoing it here at Develop, so feel free to come along.
Good plug. Good plug.
And
first-person talkers, I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you, though. Thanks for sharing.
Okay, anyone else? You, sir? I just to fill the awkward silence. I use AI. I use a thing called Otter.ai, which the other journalists in the room probably also use to transcribe interviews. That's the extent of AI use in my working day, but I'm interested to hear more.
So first off, genuinely tired of all the AI posts on LinkedIn. I'm trying to take them all off. Yeah. So historically, I always thought working with concept artists is never going to change. And I still work with concept artists, but what I've done is I've kind of had two concept artists that I've worked with. One, not going to name the name, quite stubborn, would never quite give me the variations that I wanted. And the other one was very flexible. These days, I try to get input from concept artists and then use AI to kind of tweak it in a certain direction where I want it to try and challenge them. That has worked really, really well. And I found that occasionally when I knew a few keywords of where I wanted something to go, AI would get me there faster, which all that to say, I still need the concept artist. I still want to work with a concept artist because I love the originality and just the way that they make it come to life. But I think for, that's an area where things speed up in terms of concept development, your ability to execute and get it to pitch worthiness. That has really, really sped up tremendously.
All right. Let's keep going with the buzzwords. Web3, wildly unfashionable, but
wait. I thought it was fashionable, then unfashionable. It's becoming fashionable again.
I think it's somehow it's coming back. I think, I'm interested in your thoughts on it because that I think we kind of referred to it a little bit before, but that was what people wanted. Some people wanted to be the big platform shift, like mobile was, but it hasn't really materialized. So I'm interested in your thoughts on the state of.
No, it's interesting. It's actually really genuinely interesting because games are fundamentally about communities, right? And it's fundamentally about players. And I can so see the appeal or the idea around tradability of assets, portability of assets, the beauty of perhaps like even owning a little sliver of the ecosystem that you're building. I mean, it's pretty cool. This whole decentralization around everything, the man isn't in control, players are. There's just many good sort of sounding things that come out of it. Just in practice, and there are actually some pitches out there and some people building things that sound pretty interesting. But just in practice, the way it's come out has been like a mix of outright like Ponzi schemes as a speculative Ponzi schemes, and then the sort of I guess using tokens as a funding framework to build games that frankly you just read I guess they're called white papers, right?
I don't think anyone has ever genuinely read a white paper. It's got one laugh out of that.
That's funding the sort of game that as a game maker you look at and you go, this is going to need a lot of money and a lot of time and inevitably be disappointing. So it's like one of those things, like as a player, I haven't seen anything I'm excited about truly yet, but I also wouldn't completely dismiss it because it's one of those things. Maybe there's a cauldron of innovation that ultimately will come out with something that's amazing. It's just unfortunately because it involves finance and it involves speculation. There is many bad outcomes that are being driven by that sort of, at least for the time being, to me, are obscuring anything that might actually be great for players. And that's like at the end of the day, we're making things for players, right? And it's whatever is great for the industry or not doesn't really matter so much. It's like what is great for the player. And I don't think we've yet seen that.
I don't want to come across as a dunking on Web3, but I'm up for any new technology as long as it's easy to use and people actually want it. I think perhaps
blockchain has been a solution in search of a problem in many areas, right? So, and I think in games it certainly suffered from that. And I do think that there's been particular amounts of player backlash, and frankly, rightly so, because of projects that are promises made that don't hold or sort of implicit financial promises that don't hold. And so it's become pretty scammy as a place, and that's never good. I've usually take the long view of these things, and I do remember the days when people were absolutely certain that mobile gaming would never ever go anywhere because of the fundamental limitations on mobile devices, which was true at the time, just like it is very much true at the time that today there's nothing in Web3 that I'm excited about. But then who knows? Maybe someone can come up with it.
And on a similar note, metaverse. I think a couple of years ago I came to develop, and the M word was used an awful lot. This year I don't think it will be used quite so much, but. How do you feel like that has progressed in the last couple of years of sort of investor hype and then?
It's really tricky, right? Because that feels like it's like if it's 1 degree removed in that, not only do you have the asset portability and you have all of these interesting things, but then you actually that has somehow translated into an open, interconnected set of game worlds that all work in ways that it's just as a game. I read Ready Player One. I read Ready Player One like everybody else, and I was like, this is cool. What a fantasy to be part of. But also back of my mind, going as a game maker, how the shit? How's this going to come together? So I do think that it's actually not too different from some of the conceptual similarities between Web3 and Gen AI, even though they're completely different things. In that you can, as an executive, you can put on a suit and you can look at Gen AI really quickly and look at, holy moly, this is going to change the world, right? Not understanding that there's actually some subtleties in how games are made, and that perhaps actually it takes a little more than just produce this demo for this to actually be useful. In a similar way, I think Web3 sounds so good as a pitch in so many ways that it attracts a lot of, or attracted and then didn't attract, and now perhaps possibly is attracting again some amounts of capital in order to kind of go pursue that dream. But the devil's in the detail. The metaverse, it's like really, I mean, I would love to see, like, you know, wake up 20 years from now and see somebody, somehow this has come together where the entire game industry can somehow be super interoperable and we can all play each other's games, so I can take my car from my, you know, my GTA, whatever number we're at that point in time, and drive it straight into my TMNT game. Like, I don't know. I just can't for the life of me work out how that would actually work. But, you know, hopefully.
I think the moral of the story is, you know, make games for platforms that players are actually playing on. But anyway, we have 1 minute, but if anyone else has any further questions, we did a little bit of Q&A around AI, but we have some questions here. Or, sorry, further back.
Thanks. Hello. Hi there. Thanks for the talk. Really thoroughly interesting. The question I have is about the early days of starting your studios and deciding on the game that you were going to build. Did you decide on a game and find an audience, or did you find an audience and build a game for them? What was your approach?
That's a really great question. So yeah, the question is kind of, do you make what you want to make, or do you try to first work out who you're making the game for? And I think the answer is both. Like the mental model I have on this, and this is the hardest and most interesting part in my mind of game building, is like, what do you have a group of people, now what, right? So I think, like, in the way, my mental model is like, it's a Venn diagram, because that's how my brain works, in two-dimensional Venn diagrams. On the one hand, you must make something you are passionate about yourself. Having attempted multiple times to make games for an audience that the team itself wasn't super passionate about, they failed every time in my world. There are places in casual games and stuff where, like, there are companies that can do that. I don't know how to do that, right? So I would always start within the circle of what are you passionate about. And then next, build another circle of what are you uniquely good at, based on your own backgrounds and the things that you've made before, your technical, creative expertise, whatever it is. What kind of things are you uniquely good at? Then at least pick the overlap of those two circles, and you're like off to a promising start. So a thing that you're passionate about and a thing that you're uniquely good at. It's not good enough that you can make it, but are you uniquely good at it? Do you have a unique qualification for, like, why you would be good at that? And then draw a third circle for what actually makes any kind of business sense, right? And then take the remaining intersection of those things, and then start guessing from there. So I think that's certainly been a mental model for me. But the other important thing there is that this is not a one-time decision that you will make, right? It's not like you made the decision and that's it, you go, or hopefully not, you go and you execute for 3 years and out comes a game, right? It's actually really important to treat that also as like a more dynamic process, where you sort of search, where you as quickly as early as possible even in the concepting phase, try to now get that in front of real players, and whatever it takes. Just try to find some way of getting an echo back, because chances are that the first thing that you start doing, I mean, it is a guess at the end of the day, and all of these things are conceptual. You know, so long as, if you're passionate about it, you're uniquely good at building it, and it sort of makes business sense. You can sort of convince yourself that it makes business sense to do this. And there's, like, you know, you can study the market or whatever that it makes business sense. Then even then it's a guess. So the committing to a process where every 3 months or so, you have to reprove to yourself that you're on the right track with whatever, like, whichever mechanism you find a way to do it. Make sure that players are interested, partners are interested, publishers are interested, like your random friend or it can't be a friend because they always tell you you're doing a good job, but like some other, somebody you trust who's like a harsh, you know, everyone has a friend who's like, tells it the way it is. Like, does that person still think it's a good idea? So like forcing yourself to like iterate on that as well I do that.
Right. Cool. So yeah, getting in front of the communities, forums, things like that, show the game early, and then get your feedback.
All of the things, yeah.
Great.
And then try to read the tea leaves, because you'll never get exact data from anywhere. So try to prove yourself wrong. That's like my favorite way to approach it. I try to find ways where like you deliberately provoke a negative reaction out of it, to see, like, can you get that negative reaction? If so, what is it, and how does it help you be better?
Cool. Great advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question down here.
Thank you for coming and for sharing. Regarding your comment on games which involve multiple players or better and community around that, how are you thinking about in-game chat and games that have user-generated content, and regarding the safety issues that are accompanying that?
It's a good question. I mean, the truth is, whatever player-generated content you give players the tools to use will be abused, right? I mean, it just is what it is. They will find ever more creative ways to abuse it, or to whatever filtering you have, whatever moderation you have, it will be tested in lots of different ways. So I think the core of it, firstly, is to, in my opinion, first and foremost, allow players to opt in or opt out, like just so that you decide what level of experience you want to have as a player. And perhaps you have just literally pre-generated social pings and pre-generated chats as the very base level of that collaboration. So that if that's what you want to be exposed to and that's what you want to play, that's what you've got. You don't get assaulted with things that you didn't want to see. And then of course there is a, what's it called? There's a minor industry these days around moderation and trying to auto filter chat and do other things, and there are good companies doing that sort of thing and trying to figure it out, which I would use. I think it's pretty important. And then finally, of course, there's a whole industry around trying to think through how to promote positive behaviors in a community and how to reward that and how to gently discourage people and or put people who prefer a certain type of social interaction in games to perhaps all play with each other. And they're also pretty good case studies. So that is, I'm sure that there will be talks on this subject here specifically. But I do think it's important. I mean, a game that doesn't feel safe or doesn't feel like an inviting place to be is probably not a game that grows very easily.
Cool. We're being told to wrap up. So thank you very much for coming, everyone.
Thank you,
Kristian.
Cheers, that was fun.
And
you've been turned off. That's it. You're out.
Turned off.
Yeah. They're going to bring the hook next.
Thank you.